There he is, David Halbrook. Hello. Welcome to IFC's Warrior Wednesday. We're glad to have you, man.
Michael Ware, is great to be on, man. I've been watching these Warrior Wednesday podcasts for quite some time, and I'm just honored you invited me on. Thank you, sir.
I'm glad that you're here. So last week we had our 100th episode with your boss, man, Doug Hamlin. He was here. We had a tremendous visit. We talked about a lot of stuff, but I'll tell you, one of the things that we spoke about was something that I had to admit to him that I was not very proud about. And that was that there are a myriad of programs NRA runs that I haven't delved into, I haven't promoted, IFC hasn't pushed forward. And when you and I spoke on the phone just moments ago, and I said, hey, I would like to showcase these things. I can't think of a better person to bring on to walk us through some of those things. So I'm thinking, Dave, if I'm Joe Blow listening to this or watching this, Joe Blow, or from any state that for that matter, and I say to myself, you know what, I would like to go find out about some of those programs, and then you go see some of the dozens of them that NRA offers. How do we get the ball rolling? Well, who do I talk to? What questions do I ask? How is that best started?
Well, you know, when I think about Iowa, I think of a couple things, right? But I think of a great movie called, you know, the greatest line in a movie is, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually come from a state that would be regarded as anti-2A. I was pretty blessed in 2014 to run into an NRA staff member that gave me a book called The Art of War in Sun Tzu. And it's like, in the state you're in, you're going to have to change voters' minds one step at a time, one program at a time. So that's when I really delved into NRA programs. I became an event director I became a certified instructor. I became a certified coach, and those handled my shooting venue aspects. But then again, I did something really crazy. I became an event director for a program called NRA Day. It used to be called NRA Brownells Days. It's been rebranded as the NRA Day program. Mm-hmm. And what I learned from that program is I can run a multitude of 2A events and not necessarily need a range to do it at. I can remember running help put together a Refuse to Be a Victim clinic in San Francisco, California. That was not spoken in English. It was the Asian community needed to learn how to protect themselves without the use of firearms. So I got a little bit of knowledge of Refuse to Be a Victim. I got a little bit of knowledge about School Shield. I got a lot of knowledge about Women on Target. I actually met my wife at a Women on Target event in 2005. So it kind of worked out well for me.
Not bad.
Right? Can't complain about that. She's never really let me do solo Women on Target events since that time, but you know, you'll understand why. But then I got blessed enough to be put in this program called General Operations with the National Rifle Association. And I started looking at all these different programs, from Youth Wildlife Art Contests to WIAC, to the Youth Education Summit, to Youth Hunter Ed Clinics, to junior shooting events, to adult shooting events, to competition events, to new events called the American Rifle Challenge, the ARC. And it actually started, I want to say, in 2017. It kind of fell off the map for a little while, but we brought that back in Atterbury, Indiana, this last April 19th. But I've been really blessed. I've been able to talk to and communicate with people throughout the great country of ours. And as you can imagine, I can talk to someone in Iowa and I can talk to someone in California. The conversation is going to be a little bit different in regards to specific firearms and the type of firearms they're using. But the message is all clear. You know, I read a great quote yesterday from the vice president of the Texas State Rifle Association. And the quote said, "We are not just the Second Amendment, we are a community." And I strongly believe that. We are a two-way warrior community. It's a mindset. It's who we are. We know what we do is right. The Constitution tells us our right. It's our right. Mm-hmm. And because I happen to live in a state where people might discriminate against that, they kind of don't discriminate about the programs we run. They're never going to balk at helping a Refuse to Be a Victim event. They're never going to balk at Eddie Eagle. You know, I've got one of the most anti-gun congressman in the United States right now, a gentleman by the name of Ted Lieu. But I actually have a picture of him and Eddie Eagle arm in arm at a Hermosa Beach St. Patrick's Day parade. So I think back to that old mentor of mine when he said, "Send Sue, change the hearts and minds of voters one vote at a time." I think back to that, and that's just one of the great things NRA programs can do. It can bring a community together, and we are the 2A community, but we need to reach out. Because let's face it, Michael, we've had this conversation before. You and I don't do what we do because of you and I. We do what we do because it's right, and we do it for our children's children.
Yeah.
I want my children's children to have the same Second Amendment rights that you and I have today. I want mine to have a little bit better.
Well, what you're talking about here is something that you and I have discussed before many times. I've had conversations similar to this with others, but the fact of the matter is, while what we do is not always, but often firearm centric, so to speak,
Sure.
We are not fundamentally gun people across the board. What we are civil rights people across the board. I mean, I remember every single person I've talked to from NRA reminding me often, and I'm glad that they have, that the NRA is the nation's oldest civil rights organization, and it's true. So,
absolutely.
So when I hear people talk about, well, gun rights this and gun rights that, I'm like, well, yeah, I know what you mean, and I'm with you, right there with you. But guns don't have rights; people do. So there are a lot of people who can go out there and take a refuse to be a victim course, or come to one of these things that may not have interest either primarily or even secondarily in a firearm, but we want them well kept. We want them situationally aware. We want them equipped up here with what they
Absolutely.
need to avoid harm. And that's what this is about. So I think that you're so right when we say that these fundamental things for most of the programs that NRA offers, they transcend your political views, or whether you're a gun guy or not, or whether you're a gun gal or not. They move across that. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that we aren't taking stock of nearly as often. So let me go back to the question I asked you before, because let's say that, like you said, some of these aren't even range centric. Let's say that I'm part of a club. Let's say that you've seen the gals in the red hats.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So absolutely. What do they call? What is that called? Is the red hat
those
club?
gals out of Texas with the red.
Whatever.
I don't know. I know who you're talking about.
Club. So let's say that there's a club of these women that say, you know what? My husband was listening to the thing the other day, or one of my girlfriends, and I heard these two fellas talking about refuse to be a victim. I wonder how I could set something like that, or who do I call? What do I do? So in that circumstance, Dave, walk me through what that looks like.
Well, if someone was calling the NRA or Dave about refuse to be a victim, I would put them in touch with two great people, Dr. Joseph Loger at headquarters and Kelly Farmer. I would link them up with those two people that run that program, and they would walk them through the process and help them feel comfortable about putting those events on and get it done. And we would make sure, like my boss, Doug Hamlin, was saying last week, we got to put people in touch with people we know where we're going to get stuff done. So part of the community engagement division is Dr. Joseph Loger, the director of the division, and Kelly Farmer, manager of the Ed Eagle program, as well as Refuse to be a Victim. And we have a new great staff member on board, Mr. Ed O'Brien, out of Colorado Springs. So we, depending on where you're located in this great country of ours, we have the tools for you. We can put the tools in your toolbox. You become willing to put one on, and you're not going to be dissatisfied.
Okay, so what kind of prerequisites for a Refuse to be a Victim course? What kind of prerequisites are in place, or what things do we need to have prepared in order to do this?
A venue and a date. Just like Iowa, if you build it, they will come. They will get you all the materials and walk you through the process of how to put those together. And, you know, it's like coming up with a Women on Target shooting clinic or an NRA Day event. The first question I'm always asked, what do I need to do? You need to give me a date and a venue. You give me a date and a venue, we can make magic happen. And then as we do that, we're going to link up with our friends at Iowa Firearms Coalition. And we're going to say, hey, we've got this event coming up in this town. Geographically, you know your state better than anyone else. And can you help them get the word out on social media? Can you introduce Iowa Farms Coalition to them? Can we start building this 2A community, or this community of Americans? You know, one of the greatest things about the National Rifle Association is we are that giant melting pot of America. I see everyone within our organization. It's just a great place to be. We are Americans, and we see other clubs. We were just I was just in communication with some clubs in Brazil, Ireland, and the Bahamas that want what we have. They want to link up. They want to participate in some of these NRA programs. Our great friends in Puerto Rico want help putting on another Women on Target. They want help getting memberships for the National Rifle Association. They want to in turn take that and turn those into certified instructors. It's a great big giant melting pot of people. It's just, we are a great community. And that's why I love working for community engagement, my department, so much.
I can see how that would be very rewarding, because the truth of the matter is, like we've talked about before, there are going to be some people whom I love very much, people that I haven't even met yet, strangers that I'm going to run into, that simply don't have the same cares and concerns and focuses that I may when it regards some of these individual things. But most of the programs we're talking about are universal, and they are for everybody. And so how much does a class like this cost? What's the average person going to pop off to be part of this?
I'm not sure as far as refuse to be a victim. I'm not sure what the cost is going to be, because again, when you look at the budget, you got to look at, are you paying for the room? You want to offset that cost. Yeah. The material that comes from headquarters is a minimal cost, and you got to cover the materials that are sent out. But I haven't put on a refuse to be a victim clinic in many, many years, so that I don't know how to help you with that.
The reason that I'm asking about that is I think that people need to understand that you don't need to be prepared to bring a check for $100. No. That is not the kind of thing that we're talking about here. Most of the people that help put these on are basically looking to cover their cost, and sometimes nothing else, or most of the time nothing else. So it's a bare minimum cost associated with most of these things, and that was the emphasis that I wanted to make. So while each one of these things would have to be taken based on, like you said, the venue and whatever else, and sometimes even the venues are like, oh, you're going to offer this sort of a complimentary class. Well, we have a special rate for folks like you that are being charitable. So if anybody's looking into doing that, by all means, make sure they know about that.
And if it's one of the shooting events, if it's an NRA Day shooting event, or if it's a Women on Target shooting clinic, you've got to then take into the cost, the ammunition cost. You've got to take into the factor, are you going to feed folks? So there, again, it's minimal cost. Yeah. And then you've got to take into the fact, what is the range going to charge you? And for events like this, the range fees are, as you can imagine, very minimal.
Yeah.
And these clinic directors that put these programs together, they're not going into through these shooting clinics, they're not building their CV. They're not becoming closer to becoming a training counselor or something like that. It's introductory shooting sports level stuff, and nobody's doing it to make a living. No one's charging out the nose, and it's very affordable.
Fantastic. So what's I guess this is a little personal, but do you have a personal favorite? I mean, is there one of these that you've been part of that you get the most personal satisfaction out of, Dave? Or is there some are they all great? I mean, which one do you like the most?
Number one, they're all great. But personally, I love to hunt. I grew up hunting. I love the Youth Education Hunting Summit. I love the free NRA Hunter Ed course online. I love Women on Target. I love teaching and coaching. I love getting firearms in someone's hands for the first time. And that just makes me so excited.
Yeah.
It's funny. My first actual paying job, 1984 Olympics at Prado Shooting Park. Through my family members, we had a booth to sell binoculars and spotting scopes. I was 19. I didn't really want to be selling binoculars at a shooting venue. I wanted to go see this girl everybody was talking about named Mary Lou Renton, about 20 miles from where I was at. But
Yeah.
I got to see the world stage. I got to see how many press people were there covering the shotgun. I can remember this guy out of Italy winning the gold, and it was like he was like Babe Ruth in Italy. It's an amazing community, right? It's just really an amazing community. As far as my favorite, it's kind of like asking me to pick my favorite firearm. I can't do it.
Okay. All right.
There's not an NRA program I don't love. I love them all.
Okay. Well,
there's a home for everybody.
Okay. So maybe that wasn't very fair. So let me ask you again, this is very personal. If you can, if you don't want to, that's okay. But do you remember, and you can omit the names, that's fine. But do you remember a personal story or a personal interaction that you had that was very heartwarming and convinced you that you were doing the right thing at the right time? Do you have anything like that you'd share with us? Because I think people need to understand how personal this is and how much satisfaction there is associated with watching these people discover something fantastic for the first time and knowing that they're going to apply accountability and responsibility as tenets of what's going on with every one of these programs forward in every aspect of their lives. So do you have anything you'd share?
There's so many, Michael. I grew up with a very blessed family, mentors of mine. If I turn around and I can look at thank you cards from kids that are now adults for helping them in their shooting sports activities, how I got started in this whole rodeo of life of 2A activism. I have to go back to my junior year of high school. I have to think back about, in California, there was a thing called Proposition 15. I was a junior in high school that loved sports. I really wasn't paying attention to what Prop 15 meant, but I did know it was a handgun ban. And I thought, that means I'm never going to get my grandpa's pistols? Okay, I'm against this.
Yeah.
And I can remember wearing a No on 15 button to school one morning, and it was first period, and my English teacher sent me home. I'm like, this is great. What he said was the National Rifle Association shouldn't have anything to do with Prop 15. It's about handguns, not rifles. And again, you're sending me home from English? Touchdown. I didn't go home. I did not go home. I walked to the gun shop. And Michael, as you know, my family owned the gun shop, and they were just freaking out. They were yelling at me, why aren't you in school? Why aren't you in school? Mr. Pechak sent me home. Well, why? Because I'm wearing this. Well, that's stupid. And it might have been 3 or 4 days later, the king of cowboys, Roy Rogers, was at Fontana High School, my high school, saying we should all vote no on Prop 15. And, it was a time in the world where every gun shop had just smoke-filled rooms and coffee cans. Everybody's putting money in these coffee cans to defeat this horrible proposition, Prop 15. And at the time, there was a very popular mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Tom Bradley, running for governor, and he ran against a very unknown district attorney from Yorba Linda named George Deukmejian. And the key about that was some great legislators, H.L. Bill Richardson, started a group called California Gun Owners. There was the NRA and there was the California Rifle and Pistol Association. And those three groups came together. And there was no way this guy named George Deukmejian was supposed to beat Tom Bradley, the mayor of Los Angeles. And he did. And the reason for that was the 2A community, the gun community got together, turned out the vote, and watched magic happen. I watched magic happen. We cut back to 10, 15 years after that. 1997, I went up to a Friends of the NRA banquet. Roy Rogers was chairing it, and it was at the Roy Rogers Museum. And I became reacquainted with the King of Cowboys, and he said, guess what, Dave? He said, what? You're going to be the chair next year. I'm like, I don't know about you, but there's no way on God's green earth you could say no to Roy Rogers.
Right.
So I became the chair of the Friends of the NRA Committee for the High Desert the following year, and we just went boom, 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 win awards. And then that's when it stuck. I knew at that time I wanted to work and be part of this great organization, the oldest civil rights organization in America, the National Rifle Association.
Wow.
And I became a consultant in 2014, and in 2016, May of 2016, dreams came true. And I wanted this for a long time. And through a lot of dedication, a lot of volunteering, and a lot of work, I was blessed enough to be employed by the group I've always wanted to work for.
Wow. Dave, that's fantastic. I didn't know some of that stuff. As many times as you and I have talked, I don't know if I knew all of those things. I mean, rest his soul. I've learned a lot about your Uncle Gary and his shop. Now, he owned what'd you say, the oldest FFL west of the Mississippi or something like that?
No. The largest county in the country is San Bernardino County.
Okay.
And my Uncle Gary owned a gun shop called Halbrook Gun Room in Fontana, California, which was in San Bernardino County. And the funny thing about that, he got his FFL in 1966. Then he got drafted, and he went away and did what he had to do in Vietnam. Got a Bronze Star and a few good awards there. He excelled in the Marine Corps. When he came back, and he had an FFL, he came back and he had no idea what was going on with the 1968 Gun Control Act. So he went away to fight for his country, and he came back to see that mess. And that planted the seed. And my parents divorced when I was very young. They divorced when I was in kindergarten. And I later in life found a great role model in my stepdad, the man who raised me, just a great man. But the funny thing about Halbrook's Gun Room being down the street from where I was actually living, I knew it was my last name on that wall. So I knew after school I would walk to the gun shop until my mom got off work. Yeah. I've been hanging out at a gun shop ever since a little toddler. And unfortunately, he passed a year. February was a year. So he passed a year and a couple months ago. The FFL is still active for another couple months, but it became the longest active FFL in San Bernardino County. And I used to like to joke with him and say, hey, you've been doing this longer than anyone in the largest county in the country. And through that, I've seen a lot of great people come through the doors. I've seen a lot of, I've seen a lot of history there. What a lot of people don't realize is, Roy Weatherby lived not too far from there, right? Weatherby Rifles, Southern California company. Sierra Bullets, Burger Bullets, right there, Burger Bullets. These are all Southern California companies. Through the general makeup of California, I used to love those days when Chuck Buck used to drive up to the gun shop, because Buck Knives my uncle started selling Buck Knives in 1966. So it's not like Chuck didn't take a liking to my uncle, and just seeing all the history and sitting in on those conversations and just meeting some really great people.
Fantastic, man. You've got a lot of history. Every time you and I visit, I find out something pretty darn cool that I hadn't logged with you earlier. So thank you for that. So I wanted you to help us today. Thank you, by the way. And I appreciate your willingness to come on and visit, especially on the fly. So I really, really appreciate this, Dave.
Anytime for you, buddy.
Now, so I wanted to illustrate to people that IFC has work that they need to do in fostering and helping with some of these programs. And we've touched on that, and we've done a pretty good job, I think, of getting an idea what some of that may look like. So do you have any recommendations for what you see in places like Iowa that are rich for these programs? Any low-hanging fruit that clubs or ranges or anybody should be looking at first and foremost?
Well, when I think of Iowa, I think about, so let's pick up the pace on that NRA Day program. I know we ran one out of Des Moines a couple of years ago, and it didn't get the results that some of those event directors wanted. I know that a year ago we ran a Women on Target shooting clinic, and there were some questions about some adaptive shooters that bridged across. And I thought, well, did you guys know about our adaptive shooting program? You need to loop in with Dr. Joseph Loger on that. We have a real life doctor that handles our adaptive shooting program. So the more we do things, the more we have to realize, you know what, if I have a question, the NRA probably has a solution. Reach out, and we can put you in touch with the right people that can help you with whatever aspects you want. And then in turn, when we do events, when we do something like the Youth Wildlife Art Contest, it's not 2A community at all.
Right.
But we need to figure out how to get this application out to the schools in Iowa. We need to figure out how to, when we register an event in Iowa, how do we get it out to the community of Iowa? And I can't think of a better venue than IFC for partnering up with those types of events.
Well, I was looking over here in another screen so I could display it. But basically, if people are just going to go to NRA.org, they can start exploring any of that stuff any way that they want to. As I zip down through here, I mean, there's everything imaginable. I don't think, if you haven't gone to this website recently, just go to NRA.org and start perusing. I mean, there is absolutely a tremendous amount of stuff there to look through. I mean, clubs and associations, competitive shooting, events, entertainment, history, giving, firearms training, hunting, law enforcement, media publications, policies and legislations, recreational shooting. I mean, right down to safety and education, volunteering, women and youth interests, scholarships, awards, right down to shopping. I mean, you name it, all kinds of stuff is there.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I forget how comprehensive the site is, what all that entails. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. If you can think of it, we can help you with it, right? And one of the greatest stories coming back out of Atlanta, our annual meetings last month, is we historically give out that youngest and oldest NRA life member in the room, right? And
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, that's how we start our members of the meetings off. Is we give a plaque to the youngest award winner, life member, and really great that our friends from our state association in Delaware, one of their children won this year, so that was pretty exciting. But the oldest NRA life member in the room for that meeting happened to be 100 years old.
Wow.
Right? World War II vet, 100 years old, raised his hand, got help getting up there, got a hug from Doug Hamlin, and he got on the microphone. And I knew where he was from. I knew he was from California.
Yeah.
And he's a World War II veteran. And he stated he's been a life member since as long as he can remember, and he's never owned a firearm.
Okay.
But he relates with the National Rifle Association.
Yeah.
It is a community.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be shooting centric, right?
Right.
It's a way of life. The 2A community is a way of life. The Constitution, America, everything we love, freedom, it's a way of life. And you've got passion for that. I can tell the day I talked to you on the phone, I knew you had that drive and that passion that we think a lot alike. And that's how we're going to get stuff done.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate that. Like I tell people, I mean, yes, I'm on this recording, and people, it's natural for to say, oh, Michael, you this and you that. I'm telling you, and you know this because you've been in these circles a long time. It's not me. It's the people that I work among.
Absolutely.
It's our membership. It's our volunteers. I'm telling you, there are people who stand there for 3 days getting fallen arches on the concrete at a gun show on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, just to inform people what's going on, help answer their questions, manage their concerns, help and sell membership, the whole 9 yards. These people are why we do this. And these people give us our passion and our energy to promote this forward, because I volunteer among some absolutely fantastic people. And without them, none of this stuff works. So I am really, really tickled that there are people who are willing to do it. So thank you for that. Now, before we part, is there anything that we haven't covered that we need to real quick?
I just, you know what? There's strength in numbers. Everybody identifies with our groups we're part of. We need to get more members. IFC needs more members. The NRA needs more members. There's strength in numbers. We keep rolling the ball. We you know, in some states, we have to keep pushing the ball up the hill or the rock up the hill. But it's like, if you identify with us, if you love this country, and if you love the Constitution, there's no reason why you shouldn't be a member of the IFC and the National Rifle Association.
I agree.
Need your membership.
You know, we
be
probably
part
do
of the winning team. We all want to be part of the winning team, and it's right here. It's the NRA and it's IFC.
Yeah, I agree. We probably don't ask for the membership near as often as we should. And when we make our wins and we make our advances, we probably don't do a good job of communicating that stuff, because we're moving on to the next thing. I mean, okay, we've checked that box.
It's always in motion.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people will say that about the NRA. Well, you did that. Why didn't you put it out? Because we're still doing that. And, you know, just paying attention to IFC social media the last couple of days, you've had some tremendous victories in the House in Iowa this week. And kudos to that. Congratulations to that.
Yep.
I know you surround yourself with a lot of great people, and it's just amazing what the Iowa Firearms Coalition is able to accomplish. And again, we don't do that ourselves, but it takes leadership. It takes guys like you and Michael. Ever since I've met you, before I met you and just talked to you, I knew I would run through a wall for you. You just have that leadership type ability. And so thank you for what you do.
Glad to. As I said, I mean, the energy and the poise come from, the energy comes from the people that are around me. And frankly, the action that comes from the mentors that came before me. You know how this works. This organization was built by the people before me and the people that were much better at this than myself, building this thing up so that we could take it to the next level. And the people like me and the folks that I volunteer among now will hand this to the next people and they'll take it to the next level. So we're all glad to be links in the chain. So thank you for coming on today, Dave Halbrook.
Brother, thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, sir. Thank you.